If you aren't getting better, you're getting worse. That is the harsh reality of human existence. This isn't going to be your typical video on tips and tricks or habits and skills that you can learn to change your life. This video is going to be a harsh reality of what life is, what it means to be human, and what it takes to actually change your life and reach your ideal future. We often think that what we gain in our lives will stay around forever. We think to ourselves, once we get that six-pack, that girl, that car, that house, that we will be happy and fulfilled. But this just isn't the case. It's not reality. Our entire lives, we have been set up to fail. The people at the top of the hierarchy have mastered human psychology, they've mastered understanding basic survival needs, and they have turned us into puppets. I'm saying this because we seek the carrot. We seek the pleasure, the outcome, the goal, the achievement, and the prize. And this causes us to constantly feel empty, never satisfied, just like a drug addict. Now you might be asking to yourself, well, what are we supposed to do? What am I supposed to do with my life then? And how I answer this is, the purpose of life isn't pleasure and carrots and rewards and achievements. The purpose of life is the transformation we undergo in pursuit of those carrots, in pursuit of discovering our maximum potential, in pursuit of justifying our suffering. This is why stories have so much meaning to us humans. Every great story undergoes some form of transformation. We don't like stories where the main character just gets everything, he just always had it. We like to watch somebody struggle and overcome. That is the meaning of life, the transformation itself. So what is transformation? Why is it important? And how can you use it to change your life in the next 6 months? The definition of transformation itself means to change from one form to another. You need transformation because your current life is detached from your ideal life. Therefore, undergoing transformation will close that gap between your ideal life and your current life, leading you to a life of happiness, fulfillment, meaning, whatever. But in order to begin this, you need to define your ideal life. You need to define your ideal, what the ideal version of you looks like. Because if you want to change your life, you need to have an aim. You need to have an ideal that you're striving towards. You need to have something or someone to transform into. But the problem with this is that most of us create ideals with the emphasis on material possessions. We associate our ideal with the possessions, achievements, or things that they have. For example, we'll associate an ideal with a mansion or money rather than the comfort of a home and freedom. So literally the first thing you need to do in order to change your life is just to find out exactly what you want to change your life into. What does your ideal self look like? How do they wake up? What do they do for a living? How do they eat, sleep, and even talk? Do they procrastinate? Are they punctual? Are they creative and focused? You need to take out a notebook or open up your notes app and literally paint an image of what your ideal self looks like. You need to create a vision. And please try to be as specific as possible and really try to focus on what your ideal self doesn't do. Rather than trying to add habits and traits and characteristics that you don't have, try and remove things that you have currently, but your ideal self doesn't. And we're gonna get into this in the future parts of this video, but I want you to make sure that you answer these 3 questions as you paint the picture of your ideal self. How do you want to live? How do you want to die? And how do you want to be remembered? You see, that's all you need. There's no purpose, there's no passion, there's no dopamine and reward and achievements. No, these are the only 3 things you need in your entire life. These should be your oath, your law of what you follow on every single day. So now that you've kind of painted this picture of your ideal, we can start to dive into goal setting and how you can achieve this ideal of yours. But there is one problem. Goals are nonsense. There are no carrots, so stop chasing them. Rewards have become our modern god. We put so much emphasis on getting the reward, yet in reality, rewards are our greatest enemy. Since we were young, we've been conditioned to do something in return for a prize or praise. And this is why we find it so challenging to do things or tasks that don't immediately give us a reward, or even ones that don't give us a reward at all. And those are often the most important things, like changing your life, like quitting the job, starting that business. None of those things have rewards. There's no pleasure when you've posted 1,000 videos and you've gotten no responses. There's no pleasure when you're fat and you're barely starting to work out, nothing feels good. And it's a problem that we've been conditioned that it should, that we need that sense of reward when that's just not reality. If you want to change your life, you need to stop looking for rewards. So in order to actually change your life, you need to actually begin implementation of your ideal life. And there's a bunch of videos on this on YouTube, and it's very obvious on what you have to do. And that is just invest time or simply pretend that you are already in your ideal life. Now, everyone is going to have a different time that they can invest when it comes to their ideal life, but what everyone needs to do is invest some time, even if it's just 5 minutes of their day, to implement, to create, and to build that life into a reality. And over time, as you do this, you can start to increase your time invested, and soon it will become a reality. For example, if you want to become a filmmaker, but you don't do any film at all, you can start filming 5 minutes a day and then slowly start filming 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 2 hours, 4 hours, to where it just becomes a reality of your everyday life. And there are 3 mental shifts I want to share with you that have taken me years to understand. And me sharing these realizations with you can save you so much time and frustration and confusion when it comes to life and why you're not seeing any progress, why you're not seeing any change. So to stop chasing carrots, you need to first realize that there is no passion. There is no purpose. The purpose is actually you, not a certain thing or a certain job or career. The purpose is you maximizing your potential. There is no dopamine. There is only doing. There is only do. The second mental shift I want you to have kind of goes off the first one, and it's that there is no reward. There is no prize. There is no pleasure. There is only transformation and progression towards your ideal, towards your maximum potential. And the third mental shift I want you to have, which kind of summarizes this all, is discovering your potential is the only way you will feel fulfilled. And these 3 mental shifts can apply to anything in your life. Anything. And it took me so long to realize these things. Throughout my life, I would grow up always looking for the pleasure, always looking for the outcome, always looking to be finished with whatever it was I was doing. Once I got this, once I got that. That's not reality. You need to focus on the transformation, on maximizing your potential and your efforts. Now you may be asking yourself or feeling confused, like, how do I not set goals? Like, what about my goals I have? And yes, you should still set goals and achieve them, but you need to strive for potential, not goals. Goals are only a byproduct of reaching your highest potential. They're like additional stepping blocks moving higher towards your aim. So don't be afraid to set goals. You should still do that. Just make sure to focus on discovering your potential, on pushing your personal boundaries, and not the goals themselves. So how do you strive and discover this potential that I keep talking about? How do you make it the focus of your life, your core value? How do you use it to change your life? How do you actually begin? You do this by using self-destruction, because self-improvement is a lie. In my opinion, the idea of potential is the least talked about subject. Even though a lot of religious texts and self-improvement books as a whole, like broadly discuss potential, no one really dives deep into potential as a specific topic. And whether you are religious or agnostic or atheist, that's beyond the topic of this video. But I will say, and I think we can come to an agreement on this, that you as a human have a duty, not only to yourself, but to the people around you, to your community, to the state, to the nation, and even the world, to operate at your highest possible capacity for good, to innovate us forward and progress us forward, helping each other flourish and discovering this maximum potential as humans. And this is fact. This is true both biologically and religiously. Therefore, if you aren't striving for greatness or maximizing your potential, you aren't fulfilling your duty. And the only way you can discover your potential is figuring out what you're made of, figuring out what you are capable of. This is the process of self-destruction. Self-destruction is a mode of being that voluntarily seeks suffering to strengthen and discover oneself. For example, in clinical psychology, for treating patients, the best way to treat a client who has fears or anxiety or problems or lacks meaning in their life is to have them voluntarily face their fears, face their problems. However, I want to make this clear, and I think this is where most people get things wrong. Most YouTubers, most books get things wrong. It has been documented time and time again in these studies that I'm talking about confronting your fears, where you don't actually lose the fear you have when you face your fears. You just get braver. You get stronger. You realize, wow, there is more to me. You realize you have more potential and you start to aim up. I want you to picture a scenario where you're standing in front of a starving lion. Now, this lion can represent life or death or your fears and suffering, whatever. The best thing to do to confront a lion isn't to run. It eats things that run, actually. The best way to confront that lion is to yell, to raise your hands, to fight back. And that's life. When everything is going horrible or you're voluntarily making your life horrible and you still decide to do good in spite of that suffering, is where you find yourself. And this right here is the problem with self-improvement. This is the problem with everything you've ever been told growing up. At its core, self-improvement focuses on trying to make everything go good, go well. But the reality is you don't need the sauna or the ice bath in order to be successful and happy. You don't need to journal or meditate in order to live a life of fulfillment, because you can't discover the self by adding habits. You can't discover your potential by adding habits. That's like taking the pain med before you run away from the lion rather than just facing it. So what I'm saying here is you need to strip everything about yourself down to its core. You need to confront everything that scares you. Confront everything that you're running away from. You need to see what you are made of and just do. It's kind of like the movie Fight Club. You need to remove all of these excess distractions from your life and stop worrying about purpose and passion, because there are things in front of you that are waiting to be done. Those things are your first tasks. You know, in my opinion and in my experience, people and myself pursue self-improvement because it helps aid the pain of modern life. It helps fill the void of meaning in our everyday lives. But the problem with this is it doesn't help us find what we're made of. Instead, it becomes a carrot in itself. It doesn't solve the problem that life is still suffering. It doesn't help us confront our fears and help us grow stronger. And it doesn't connect you to yourself. You can either be a person who accepts life is suffering because it is regardless, and who bears their own cross, I'm speaking in a Christian metaphor here, who welcomes it, who thrives in it, who understands the significance of suffering, who realizes that their potential is found in the justification of their suffering, who derives purpose and meaning from their suffering. Or you can be the person who numbs it, who runs away from it, who feels unfulfilled, who lives a hedonistic life, who is unsatisfied and feels purposeless. And the actual process of implementing self-destruction begins with seeking suffering instead of seeking self-improvement. Just like the implementation of the ideal I mentioned earlier, you need to also slowly confront your fears. For example, going back to the psychology reference, you don't first put a spider on somebody who's afraid of spiders. Maybe at first you show them a picture or put the spider in a box or put it across the room, and then over time you progress to that person holding the spider. And that's the same thing in your life with your fears and with your potential. I have found a mental framework that speeds up this process of going from not being able to see the spider to holding it in your hands. And that process begins with you becoming vulnerable. In order for us to improve, we have to be willing to admit and identify our wounds so we can progress forward. Nowadays, vulnerability has a bad rep. It's seen as like weak and timid, but this isn't the case. This isn't reality. The word vulnerable originated from the Latin word vulnus, meaning to wound or wound. And we all have wounds. So don't be afraid to show the best and worst sides of yourself, because being vulnerable is how you fix yourself. Once you can identify what you're lacking, once you can identify the demons that are dragging you down, then you can strive upward and begin fighting back. But this relies on your ability to tell the truth. If you can't drop your own narcissistic tendencies and excuses as to why you aren't where you want to be in life or why you aren't living the life you want to live, then you'll never be able to achieve your ideal future. So use these wounds as fuel, as activation energy, as an excuse, reason, or even purpose to change your life. Practice self-destruction. going towards the things that you fear most, covering up those wounds, opening them back up and making them stronger, callousing your mind. Practice making yourself uncomfortable instead of trying to do the things to make yourself more comfortable. And that's it. That's life. If you accept and implement the things that I've told you today, there is literally zero chance you will fail in life. It's impossible. Progressively implement parts of your ideal and facing your fears into your everyday life. And eventually, in the case of this video, it's 6 months, but depending on how much time you implement at the start, you will have changed your life. If you liked what you just listened to, you can subscribe to my free newsletter down below in the description. And every week you can dive deep into video topics like this and psychology and improving your life. It's completely free, so go ahead and check that out. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.